It's a dreary day, times are dark, and you can't remember much about why you are here. Perhaps you've heard tales of the mysterious Spire. Maybe you've had some shady business at the strange building. Whatever your reason, you know that there is one task before you, and you know you must slay the Spire! Perhaps you've heard of this game a while back. Perhaps you've heard of it right now. Perhaps some notable streamers you tune into are playing it instead of their normal card games. People seem to be singing its praises, but what about it strikes so much interest? Surely someone might have recommended it and told you how great it is, but I'm willing to bet they left you asking yourself, why should I? Lucky you, because you've top-decked the perfect being of unfathomable power to help you draw the answers you're looking for. This video may shed some insight on just what the heck makes this early access game the card game du jour, and whether or not it has the legs to stick around. So, what is the Spire? Where did it come from? How do you slay a building? Why isn't this called Destroy the Spire? Who are these characters? Who are these enemies? What is going on? Is this supposed to be grim and gritty? I'm sure that you have many questions like these and more about the plot, narrative, and characters of the game, and I would be remiss if I didn't provide some answers. So, I don't know. Because it is? Listen. I have put an almost unhealthy amount of time into this game in the short time since I picked it up, and I still have no clue what's going on in context of the plot. If there is some sort of story and or explanation, it's not currently present within the game itself, at least nothing that sticks out. Aesthetically, Slay the Spire falls in a category that can be described as an inoffensive yet resounding meh. I'm not saying that it's bad by any stretch of the imagination, that is far better than what I can draw, but it doesn't really stretch the imagination. Enemies feel like they're there because the game needed enemies, and locations that the levels are set in can be quite confusing. The music and sound effects could use a bit of work, though, to be fair, like the loving but vengeful being that I am, that area of polish is usually the last thing to be added with traditional game development, so I anticipate more improvements are on the way. Each of the 3 levels have 1 or 2 background tunes that will drone on until you reach a boss or an elite enemy, only breaking mere seconds for when you stop at a shop or encounter an event. Considering the roguelite nature of this game, you're going to be hearing the main level music drone on quite a bit. The sound effects leave a lot to be desired. Occasionally there'll be an enemy that makes noise, but nothing reacts to taking damage, including your own character. There are no oofs or args when you play cards that attack enemies, so they lack the feeling of impact and power that one would expect. Similarly, there are no hurt or death cries for the player characters for when you get smashed in the face by a very powerful attack. The lack of auditory polish really does diminish the overall experience of an otherwise phenomenal game. And if you need someone to do some voice acting, DM me on Twitter, MegaCrate, okay, thanks. So by now you might be thinking, my unholiness, all you've done is criticize the game so far. I thought this was a video about why I should play the game. Well, my faithless minions, listen closely, because despite all my points against it in the presentation of Slay the Spire, I am addicted to this game, and I'm sure many others are as well. Slay the Spire is best described as a roguelite deck builder game. Your actions in combat are determined by the cards you play, which are drawn from your deck. Each turn you draw a fresh hand of cards, and when your deck is empty, your discard pile gets shuffled and becomes your new deck. You travel from floor to floor, encountering enemies to defeat, cards to buy, and mysteries to solve. You can find powerful relics that give passive effects or stumble upon misfortune and get detrimental curse cards added to your deck. You start your adventure up the Spire by choosing a class that comes with pre-built deck of cards. Each encounter you survive gives you the opportunity to add one of 3 new cards to your deck, and depending on what class you choose, different cards and strategies and mechanics are available. The fights get progressively more challenging, meaning that the cards you start with become obsolete by the end of the game, lucking into and choosing more powerful cards that synergize with your deck, and the relics that you find are essential to survival. There are a lot of combinations that are insanely powerful and fun to exploit, and survival is the name of the game, because you are constantly thrust into combat. Your cards will either deal damage to the enemy or give you block, which prevents damage from enemy attacks. You will always be able to see what the enemy is planning to do during their next turn, so you have all of the information you need to make the best plays with the cards you are dealt. They usually attack in the same way each encounter, so you can come prepared to crush your foes even if they ended your run last time. Not only can you see the enemy intentions at all times, but every piece of information you could ever hope for is visible and dynamic. You want to know what this debuff does? Hover over it. Not sure when your relic is going to activate? There's a little counter next to it that tracks that for you. Perhaps you want to know what cards are in your discard? You can check at any time. How much damage will the enemy take from poison this turn? Look for the little green health bar. This abundance of easily accessible information is easily one of the keys to success. I know what you want to hear next. What popular games is this like? If you're the type that is interested in card games or deck building games, especially ones with a strong single player component, then this might be up your alley. It's very similar in structure to the Dungeon Run mode that was introduced in the Kobold's Hearthstone expansion a while back. I also think it has a lot in common with drafting Magic the Gathering. Sure, you might not be facing opponents that built decks from the same packs, but a lot of forward thinking and deck construction strategy comes into play. Just like in draft, you might not be able to focus on a gimmick and instead focus on grabbing solid all-around cards early on, and wait to see if the good synergy cards will come around to you. Knowing the set, or in this case, the cards that will be available for your class in the game, will give you a huge advantage in the levels ahead. Even though this game is in early access on Steam, this is an early access title done right. The core gameplay loop is complete, and there's enough polish to justify the reduced price point. Megacrit, the developing house, is spot on with weekly updates and patches, while at the same time trying to balance what is already there. Things are advancing so rapidly, a lot of my masterful critiques are likely already being addressed. A lot of love has gone into the design of the mechanics, and I feel like they are nearing what they can do with the current mechanics, with all different design spaces for the cards and relic combinations split amongst the two classes being thoroughly explored. That's not necessarily a bad thing, however, since at the core it is a card game, and when you design a card game, you can always invent new mechanics. I'm looking forward to discovering what the future holds with the new character class coming soon, and additional game modes. I would absolutely pay for DLC game classes. I also suspect that the modding community is going to keep this going for a long time after development stops. I would love to see a Tavern Brawl-like mode where the rules change each week to something crazy like your deck starting with 10 random cards and can only be transformed, or all skill cards are played twice. Something to really go wild with the rules and throw some caution to the wind. In fact, by the time you see this video, they've already implemented a daily challenge mode. Discovering Slay the Spire is like ascending it yourself. At first, it appears basic, but the more you play it, the higher you climb, the more you discover there is to play with. As the Spire continues to be built, the design space there is for the designers to flesh out existing mechanics and add new ones will continue to expand. Players that are already hooked will be eager for excuses to return and climb it again and again, while newbies will have a bigger and bigger trove of treasures to discover the longer they wait. The place is a little bare in terms of decoration and aesthetic polish, but that is something that a little bit of visual and auditory refurnishing can take care of. I'm curious to see how high the Spire will climb. Will it elevate Megacrit to newfound heights of game design, wealth, and notoriety? Or will they spiral into madness and despair? Only time will tell. Stay sane, my minions.